Work should ideally be a space for growth, collaboration, and fulfilment. However, when the dynamics shift and toxic behaviours prevail, the consequences can be profound, impacting both physical and mental well-being. Prolonged exposure to narcissistic abuse or bullying of any kind in the workplace doesn't just leave emotional scars. It can manifest in tangible physical and mental health effects. Having been subjected to workplace narcissistic bullying myself and helping dozens of clients identify and overcome it, I'm very well aware of how many long-lasting mental, physical and behavioural effects it can have. In this video, that's exactly what we're going to explore. I'm Jo Banks. I've been a professional executive business coach for 15 years and I'm sharing what I know. Before we get into the content of today's video, just a quickie. I've decided that when I hit 1,000 subscribers, which won't be long now, I will start to do live so that I can interact with all of you in real time. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you get an alert whenever I finally do go live. I'm so excited to do that. So thanks very much for your support. Workplace narcissistic abuse. A brief overview. Workplace narcissistic abuse is a situation where an individual, not necessarily in a position of power, exploits and manipulates others for their own benefit. It involves emotional manipulation, gaslighting, constant criticism and put-downs, turning others against the victim, and a pervasive sense of superiority. Recognizing this abuse is the initial step toward recovery. I have a mini series on narcissism in the workplace, which also outlines the narcissistic cycle of abuse. So if you want more information on how to identify narcissistic traits, understand why bullies bully, plus advice and guidance on how to deal with it, I'll leave the links below. In this video, I'm just focusing on the after effects. Now, a caveat before I begin. Not everyone will experience all of the symptoms I'm going to discuss today. However, the longer you remain in an abusive relationship, whether that's work-based or personal, the more severe and long-lasting the symptoms may be. However, that doesn't mean that it must take years to recover. In the next video, I will discuss ways of dealing with the after effects of bullying. So remember, again, to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss it. So let's get started. Let's look first at the physical toll. Number 1, stress-induced ailments. The body's response to constant stress really takes a toll. Headaches, migraines, stomach issues, back and hip problems, and an increased susceptibility to illnesses are common manifestations. The immune system compromised by stress makes you more prone to infections, leaving you physically drained. The buildup of the stress hormone cortisol that gets triggered when we're stressed or anxious actually causes inflammation, which is why exercising, which burns off the adrenaline and cortisol, is absolutely critical. Even the daily 15-minute walk that I've mentioned in lots of my previous videos has significant benefits. I've done a few videos now on the stress response, including the 5 surprising signs that you're in survival mode. If you've been dealing with the stress of bullying for a long time, I pretty much guarantee that you're going to be in survival mode. So go back and check that out. I'll leave the link below. Number 2. Sleep disruptions and fatigue. The tormenting thoughts resulting from workplace abuse often disrupt sleep patterns. Insomnia or poor sleep quality becomes a norm, and that leads to chronic fatigue. The lack of restorative sleep impacts productivity and exacerbates the cycle of stress. Number 3, muscle tension and aches and pains. Stress-induced tension can manifest physically, resulting in muscle tightness, body aches, and joint pains. Again, the excessive cortisol can really inflame your joints. Hip and back issues are common as the psoas muscle, which runs from our back and down into our hip flexors, tightens when the stress response is triggered. That's because it's a key muscle that we use for running away, kicking and fighting. So think fight, flight, freeze. The persistent stress response takes a toll on our entire body, leading to physical discomfort and often reduced mobility. Number 4, appetite and weight changes. The emotional distress from abuse can significantly affect appetite. Some individuals might find solace in eating, leading to weight gain, while others might lose their appetite entirely, resulting in weight loss. Both scenarios are indicative of the emotional turmoil that we experience when we're being abused. If you find that you eat more, it's your brain's way of seeking certainty. Going back to our very earliest ancestors when food was in short supply, as soon as we ate, we knew that we would survive, at least for a short time. In addition, we're typically attracted to high calorie, high sugar, high fat, high carb foods when we're stressed, because all of this gives us a hit of dopamine, the reward chemical, which makes us feel so much better, but only in the short term. If you find that you don't want to eat, that's typically because when we're in fight, flight, freeze, our body takes all the energy away from digestion and reproduction and puts it where it needs it, your extremities, so that you can run away and fight. I find that when I'm feeling depressed, I tend to self-soothe and eat. And when I'm really stressed or anxious, I barely eat at all. That's just the pattern that I tend to fall into. I've said in my previous video, number 7, lessons I learned from being bullied at work, that I lost almost 28 pounds during my workplace bullying experience. And at 5 feet 5 inches, I ended up at around 7 stone, which is only 98 pounds. I was very, very thin. Number 5, exhaustion and physical burnout. Emotional exhaustion is mirrored physically. The constant state of vigilance in a hostile environment leads to overall physical exhaustion, impacting vitality and resilience. When you're highly stressed and anxious, you become hyper alert to threats. Literally, your nervous system gets stuck up here on high alert. Your brain can't tell the difference between physical threats, think saber-toothed tiger or somebody running towards you with a baseball bat, and a perceived threat, such as a bullying boss. To your brain, your boss is a saber-toothed tiger. So your brain is trying to protect you from mortal danger. I hate to sound dramatic, but that's exactly what's happening. Having to be that hyper alert all of the time is bound to lead to exhaustion and physical burnout. How could it not? The psychological impact. Number 1, anxiety and depression. Constant exposure to abuse breeds anxiety and depression. The persistent fear of judgment, criticism, and manipulation, always needing to be alert and on guard, often leads to heightened anxiety levels, which can lead to more severe anxiety issues and a lingering sense of sadness that can, left untreated, develop into clinical depression or serious anxiety issues. Number 2, erosion of self-worth. Narcissistic abuse chips away at self-worth. Consistent belittlement, criticism, and gaslighting tactics make you doubt your abilities, eroding your self-confidence and your belief in your worthiness. As I've mentioned in previous videos, abusers often also turn others against you. In narcissistic terms, we call those people flying monkeys, which can further diminish your self-confidence and self-worth. Number 3, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. In severe cases, prolonged abuse can result in symptoms resembling PTSD or even CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Flashbacks, hypervigilance, emotional detachment, and avoidance behaviours are prevalent when this happens, making it challenging to function in day-to-day life. It's over 15 years since my experience, and despite all the work I've done on myself, I still occasionally have flashbacks and the odd nightmare. Number 4, cognitive impairment. Chronic stress affects cognitive function. Concentration becomes arduous, memory falters, and decision-making becomes compromised. The mental fog from persistent abuse impacts work performance and daily tasks. That's because when our stress response is activated, as I've said in so many videos now, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for critical thinking, decision-making, and cognitive functioning, literally goes offline and you can't think straight. Think about it. If you're under physical threat of mortal danger, you haven't got time to think, what shall I do right here? Run away? Fight or hide? No, you've just got to run. Again, I've discussed this in a previous video, number 20. I've gone into it in more detail, why you can't think straight when you're stressed and what to do. Number 5, social withdrawal and isolation. The fear of further emotional harm leads to social withdrawal. Trust in others diminishes, causing isolation and loneliness. The toxic environment at work spills over into your personal life, affecting relationships and social interactions. This need to withdraw and isolate is another fear stress response. It's actually the freeze aspect of fight, flight, freeze. And it makes perfect sense. When you're under the enormous threat of constant workplace bullying, you want to retreat and stay where you feel safest. And that, more often than not, is your home. You'll likely also lose your ability to trust others, hence the social withdrawal, not wanting to be around others who aren't your immediate family. The behavioural ramifications. Number 1, avoidance patterns. You might develop avoidance behaviours, steering clear of situations or people who are reminiscent of the abusive environment that you've been in. This avoidance impacts professional growth and personal relationships. You may find that any type of conflict highly stress-inducing, and you'll do anything to avoid it. Number 2, heightened irritability and anger. The constant emotional turmoil can result in heightened irritability and anger. Interactions become strained and your emotional state becomes increasingly volatile. I sometimes see this in clients as they begin to heal and educate themselves, understanding more about what's happened to them. The anger they experience is a very valid response to a very traumatic experience. Number 3, coping mechanisms, substance abuse and self-harm. In desperation to cope, some individuals turn to unhealthy habits. Typical behaviours I see are what we call numbing activities, which can include excessive social media scrolling, online gaming, shopping, overeating, sex, drugs, alcohol, gambling. Now, putting the drugs to one side, because that's never a good idea, all of the other things are fine in small doses. But when we spend 3 hours an evening scrolling on social media, that's a huge red flag. It's a good indicator that you're in a freeze state of the fight, flight, freeze stress response. In addition, all of these things produce varying levels of dopamine. Low-grade dopamine, but dopamine all the same, making us feel that bit better. However, there are better places to get your feel-good dopamine fix. I'll discuss that more in the next video. In some cases, substance abuse, be it alcohol or drugs, can become an escape. And in extreme cases, self-harm can emerge as a way to regain control or numb overwhelming emotions. If that happens, if you're experiencing that, please get some help sooner rather than later. Please reach out. There are lots of people available who are only too willing to help you. The wrap up. Navigating the aftermath of workplace narcissistic abuse or bullying requires acknowledging the profound impact both on your physical and mental health. Recognizing these effects is the first step forward to recovery and healing. In the next video, I'll explore some strategies and steps that can help you recover from this traumatizing experience. In the meantime, please be kind to yourself. Despite what the bully would have you believe, you are strong, competent, and good at your job. And if you take nothing else away from this video, then this, I'll consider it a win. Please know that bullies and narcissists are incredibly insecure. They have low self-worth and low self-esteem and low confidence. As incredible as it sounds, narcissists and bullies build themselves up by putting other people down, especially people like you who are well-liked, professional, talented, skilled, empathetic, experienced, everything that they consciously or unconsciously believe that they are not. What next? As I've just mentioned, in the next video, I'm going to discuss how you can begin to heal from narcissistic abuse and bullying. I'm not suggesting for a second that it's easy, but you can do it. If anything has had a big trigger with you and you're feeling really overwhelmed right now, please, as I've just mentioned, please seek support. There's lots of people who are out there who are willing to help and talk to you. Don't leave it. Do something about it now. If you've experienced this type of abuse and have any words of wisdom that you feel comfortable sharing, please leave them in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss upcoming videos. I've got so much planned for you guys, and if there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover, again, leave it below and I'll add it to the list. As always, a huge thank you to everybody who stays until the very end, and thank you so much for your continued support. It means the absolute world to me.